You're listening to a download from the outdoorstation.co.uk. Number 482.
Hello and welcome back to the Outdoors Station. Thanks for bearing with me in recent months. As many of you know, I've been building a new office and studio since, well, before Christmas now. And as I'm doing it all myself, it's taking its toll on my time, much more than I anticipated. And what with that and business and trying to keep up to date with videos and podcasts, I'm dragging my heels a bit, but I'm trying to get back up to track and releasing as many podcasts as time will allow. Actually, maybe I'll do a quick behind the scenes Instagram video for people who are interested to see where I'm at the moment. Now, I know I've mentioned live streaming several times, very much the topic of the moment, and I've also recently done a few tests, which have been pretty successful. So therefore I hope to be starting a series of live video interviews beginning with Andy Howell and the subject of wild camping in the UK shortly. If you'd like to join in, because they are audience interactive of course, your comments and questions can be brought into the programme. Please join us over on the newsletter on the outdoorstation.co.uk to be kept up to date of when we'll actually be going live and the development. Obviously it's early days, it's live, lots of mistakes can be made, but that's part of the fun. Now, talking of wild camping, Iceland has to be one of the last true wilderness landscapes to get lost in, nestled just a few short miles from the Arctic Circle. Wild, remote, impressive, tough and challenging are just a few of the adjectives used by those who have been lucky enough to visit. That, combined with the colder weather, which in July, their peak summer, is unlikely to exceed 10 degrees C, makes it the ideal place for a very tough long-distance personal challenge. Which is exactly what Dermot Cosgrove is going to be doing early in July 2019. Hiking in aid of a very worthwhile charity, that is Dogs for the Disabled in Ireland, and walking north to south, some 620 kilometres or about 387 miles in old money, through the remotest wilderness, deserts and peaks Iceland has to offer. Check out the show notes on the outdoorstation.co.uk for all the links to him, the charity, and to track his progress.
In 2016, because of a conversation with a friend of mine, Hugh Thomas, about bird watching, I came up with the idea that I was going to go to Greenland hiking and do the Arctic Circle trail up there. And while I was thinking about it and chatting with him about it, I thought, well, if I'm going to go off and do something like this, which is kind of an unusual hike to do, I thought, well, I'll raise some funds at the same time. And my sister has been involved for years with the Irish Dogs for the Disabled. She's a foster mummy for their dogs when they take them at the start to get them used to being with families. So I got in touch with Irish Dogs for the Disabled, their CEO, Jennifer Dowler. I told her what I wanted to do, and she said, yep, absolutely, no problem. And in the run-up to actually going to Greenland, I got to learn more and more about the charity and the fantastic work they do, especially with kids. And it's become, instead of just me going off and doing a hike somewhere interesting and having a bit of fun, it's become very much about the fundraising for the charity and trying to raise as much money as I can for them. The specialist assistance dogs that they have, which they, unlike a lot of charities, they provide 100% free. And those dogs cost about 15,000 euros to get one trained and ready and out into the hands of a client. So it's quite expensive, and they're not supported. Some charities in Ireland are supported by government funding and others aren't, and these are one of the charities that aren't. And they give a huge amount of aftercare to the people that they supply the dogs to. So they invest quite a lot of money in helping people. So it's just been, I'm going to go out and smash these walks and try and do as much as I can for these people.
Well, certainly I'll be putting links to the charities and to various things that we talk about during the walk as well in the show notes. So if people want to know more about this particular charity in Ireland, then please go there to see more details. But there's certainly a lot of useful information and a very, very worthwhile cause. And it's nice to have something behind you for a reason for doing something, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's actually I find it hugely motivational. I did a fundraising day. The Irish Outdoor Store, 53 Degrees North, helped out and helped sponsor me with some kit via RAB, and they had a day for me, a fundraising day in one of their stores in Dublin, and I got to meet some of the people that train the dogs, and I got to meet a couple of the clients, and when you realise that one of the girls that I met was hugely active until she came down with an autoimmune disease, and now she's wheelchair bound. So you've got someone who's gone from doing adventure sports such as climbing to being wheelchair bound, completely on her dog, to be able to have some form of quality of life. So when you see that, it's like, these people really, really do deserve a chance and do deserve every bit of help they can get.
Oh, that's fantastic. No, really good, really good. It's nice to see the difference that you're making firsthand as well, like that.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the actual challenge or the trip itself. Now, I've not walked in Iceland at all, but I've certainly seen plenty of fantastic pictures and suggestions that it is a spectacular vista to visit. But of course, when you look at Iceland, you basically see the ring road, which goes around the outside, and I think the occasional road through the middle, and very little else. Now, you've got a background in the military, which we'll touch on perhaps, and certainly it'll be clearly explained in the show notes. And I'm really curious to know, in the world of toughness, how you feel this is going to be as a walk, I think 600 kilometres, is it?
Yeah, it works out from I'll be flying up there on the 7th of July, and I'm getting dropped off at a village called Raufarhofen. I think that's the only one that I can pronounce. And to get to what I've decided is my start point, I've got to do about 25 kilometres. So between the drop-off point and where I'll actually go down near Vik to get my transport back to the capital, to Reykjavik, it's going to work out at about 620 kilometres. So I was looking at it. I've done the Arctic Circle Trail. I did another 200 kilometres in France last year, and I was going, I can do this. Now I measured it out the other day. I put it down measured it out on a map of Ireland the other day, and I kind of went, that's going to be a bit long. So I kind of had a slight wake-up moment on that, but I've plotted the terrain and I've looked at the terrain over the last I've been looking at this for the last year and a half. So I've gone over just about every inch of terrain and spoken to several people who've done long distance hiking up there, and I know where it's going to get tricky. I know where I'm going to have to have my options open for river crossings and stuff like that when it comes to it, if the rivers are too high. And I know that when I get to the final section of it, that's where it's going to be there's going to be quite a couple of rigorous climbs. So it's just a question of I'm mentally preparing myself. But at that stage, by the time I reach those difficult areas at the very end, I'll have the bones of 2 weeks under my belt. So I should be in pretty good shape by then, fitness wise, to do that.
So coming back to the actual question of regards to how tough it is, it obviously, you're starting, I think you're only a few miles away from the Arctic Circle, aren't you?
Yeah, it's Stangi Peninsula is 3 kilometres just below the Arctic Circle. Okay,
so you're aiming to set off, I think, on the 7th or the 9th of July?
7th of July.
7th of July, which is summer. But I've just been looking at the Iceland average rainfall and temperatures in summer. The only one they mention is Reykjavik, which is just over the dizzy heights of 10 degrees.
Yeah.
So to add to the confusion and for people who are listening to this to take this on board, you're currently working in North Africa, and the average temperature is?
Well, the average summer temperature here right now has been about 45 degrees.
Okay.
So I'm heading to, and I think the Rifstangi Peninsula yesterday in the north of Iceland, where I'm starting out from, was 4 degrees. So there's a little bit of a temperature shock to be dealt with at the start.
Well, I'll say, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind instantly, I know you're working in North Africa. The temperatures are that sort of temperature. How on earth are you training for something like this in those sort of temperatures?
Well, it's a question of getting out of bed at 4 a.m. I start work at 6, so I get up at 4. I'm currently, to build up stamina and strength, I'm pulling a tire around the place on a harness behind me, doing laps of the secure perimeter fence of the base that I'm on. So it's up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and then it's doing another session then towards 8:30 in the evening, when the temperatures have at least dropped down towards kind of 30 degrees.
And have you ever experienced going from such extreme temperatures so quickly to doing a task like this?
I have. When I was in the Legion, I did an overseas deployment where we were in kind of 30 plus degrees to come back to France, and within a few days of getting back to France, which was in November, I was sent on a commando training course and up into the Vosges Mountains in France. So it was bitterly cold up there. So the whole temperature shock, I've done it before. It's not particularly nice, but as long as I keep, I'll be moving. So that'll be the big help.
For somebody that's never experienced something like that, just describe how it feels. What does your body go through when you go through such extreme temperatures from 30, 40 degrees? Yeah,
well, 40 degrees going back to, even going back home to Ireland, where it might be 20 degrees at the moment. You end up wearing a fleece jacket when everyone else is going around in shorts and t-shirt. So going up to the even further, more northerly climbs, and hopefully the temperature by kind of early July should be up to about 6 degrees in the daytime. It's going to mean wearing base layers and wearing a windproof over the top, and just move and wear. I've got liners for my sleeping bag. I've got a sleeping bag that's rated to get me down to -5. So it's kind of preparing with the amount of kit that I have access to.
Presumably the human body is fantastic at adjusting to these things, but does it take a couple of days, or does it take a week to really get back into it?
It actually only takes a couple of days to start to acclimatise. It's some people might find it a little bit longer. I remember coming back from East Africa in 1994 when it was in the 40s, 50 degrees, and coming back to the west of Ireland where it just happened to be a very, very cold late April, and it was maybe 7 or 8 degrees. And it's just a question of layering and being prepared for that. And then it takes a couple of days to kind of acclimatise to that. I mean, I don't expect at any point I'll be able to walk in shorts and a t-shirt, but it's just layering and movement, really.
Okay, well, we'll certainly come on to gear perhaps towards the end, because I've got a few questions to ask you about your published list that you've put out there. Now, on the actual 19-day diary that you've set yourself and the distances, I mean, on top of this temperature change, I see that you're going to be topping almost 40 kilometres on certain days. That's a heck of a walk.
It's a push. Now the advantage on those days is that I'll be taking advantage of the Icelandic F-Road network, which is their 4x4 road network. So it won't be strictly kind of cross country and climbing and going over very, very rough terrain. but it's still, it's doing those distances. I've been training when I've been back home in Ireland, doing regular kind of 25, 30 kilometres a day. And then back here, because I can't do quite the same amount of kilometres, I've been doing kind of 15 here in warmer temperatures and pulling a tyre behind me just to strengthen up my legs.
What sort of terrain are you expecting then? A sort of north, middle and south?
It's going to be a mixture of up in the northern peninsula. The first kind of 5 days is this slightly subarctic tundra, but it's fairly level ground. It can be a bit spongy, it can be a bit boggy and stuff like that, but it's still fairly level ground. So it should be fast moving terrain. The Central Highlands, the main issue with the Central Highlands, which is a black sand desert, volcanic sand, is that there's very few areas where there's drinkable water. There is water flow from the glaciers, but they tend to be quite silty. So it means I'm going to have to carry water for a period of kind of between 3 to 5 days. So,
well, that adds to the challenge.
Yeah, it adds to the weight. So, and then when I get to the final section, which are the Laugavar Trail and the other trail that's down there, which a lot of people just go to Iceland to walk those. That's when I start getting into kind of good steep hill walking.
So the 4x4 track aside, is this route an established route, or is it a recognised route in any way, or is it something you've just linked several routes together?
It's not really a recognised route. There's the trail that I'm actually following on doesn't fully appear on any real map. I've kind of pieced together different trails, over the past while using different map sources and stuff like that. But I've spoken to mountain bikers who've actually done it. I've scanned every inch of Google Earth that I've been able to. So I've found this trail pretty much myself. The section going across from the Axa volcano to the main one of the big glaciers that's there is really just crossing a black sand desert. There's no actual trail, but there's it's really a question of kind of going in a straight line more than anything else.
And what dangers are you got to be aware of?
Well, for me, I think the biggest issue, especially going solo, is going to be the river crossings. Depending on the flow from the glaciers, they can be quite high. So it's going to be down to making a judgment call as to how strong the flow of water is, how deep it is, and then going, okay, well, I'm not going to cross here, so I'm going to have to shift and find somewhere else to cross. So that's, as far as I'm concerned, is probably my biggest problem.
And I suppose it'd be worthwhile explaining to listeners as well that as this is completely self-supported, you're carrying all your food and, as you say, topping up with a massive amount of water when you need it. But to add to the complication, you're towing a trailer.
I am bringing a hiking cart because when I came up with the idea, well, when I first looked at the trail, I was going to hike from the town of Husavik across the island, which was 470 kilometres. And then I was looking at a few blogs online, and I found a gentleman, Will Copstick, who you may have heard of, who with his brother hiked across Iceland from the most northerly point near where I'd be starting. Well, pretty much the same area where I'll be starting, right across the island. Now he backpacked it, but then he's a whippersnapper. He's not a 50-year-old bloke like me. So I decided that, well, I'd do it. And then I was going, okay, well, to make it more interesting, I would do it unsupported, which means bringing all my food. So I started looking at solutions, and I started looking at stuff online, and I saw how Leon McCarn and Al Humphreys had gone across the empty quarter in Oman towing a trailer. Mm-hmm. So that piqued my interest, and I started looking at Googling trailers and stuff like that, and I found a company in Germany that makes one. And I got talking to a German guy who used one of these trailers to cross the Atacama Desert in South America. So I decided then, this is a good solution, because you can actually, when you hit a bad patch of terrain where you can't pull it across, you can pull the whole thing onto your back and carry it using your rucksack. So that's my creative solution to hauling all this gear across Iceland.
Well, I've looked at the trailer website, and I notice that it suggests the carrying weight is 40 kilos. And I know in your equipment, as I say, we'll come on to your equipment in a while, but you've got down there the Klattamusen 100-litre rucksack, which presumably when that's fully laden, that's going to be more than 40k. So are you carrying a rucksack as well as pulling this cart, or is it all going to be on the cart so you've got sort of more control?
It's actually going to be all on the cart, and I've worked out my load to kind of max out. Working out with Ben Grobel, the maker of the cart, it can actually go to 45 kilos. Now he recommends 40, but it can go to 45 kilos. So I'm going to max it out at that. I've been training with kind of 42 kilos at home. Filling a bag with water containers, so I know what it feels like to pull. So it's going to be up to that, and then by the time I actually hit the trails on the southern end, most of my food will be gone. I won't need to carry water, so the 2 collapsible water containers that I have will be able to just collapse down, and I'll be at my lightest for hiking those trails.
Right, because I'm looking at various pictures that I can find online of the areas that you're walking through, and as you describe it, the first section, the tundra, if it's firm enough underfoot, that should be fairly straightforward. Going across the desert as such, again, if it looks on your side and it's not too wet, that should be okay. But it's certainly the last section, the was it Logavar section?
The Logavar trails. That
looks pretty hardcore as regards pulling a cart or getting across some of those rock sections.
Yes, it is, and there's some of the parts of the trail I'll actually be able to pull the trailer behind me, and there's other parts of the trails it's going to have to go on my back.
Is it a quick thing to change it from a trailer to a rucksack?
Oh yeah, it's very easy. It's very easy because the way you rig it, the way you place your rucksack on it, you leave your straps facing upward. So you've literally just got to collapse the poles that come on the side that you attach your belt onto, and throw it up on your back. So the trailer never actually comes off the bag, so it can stay on like that. But I think the first day of the Logavar Trail, I'm going to have to tackle. It's a 1,100 meter climb in the very start of it, and then it's downhill from there. So that's going to be the real kind of, from as far as I'm concerned, that's going to be the really tough. They're going to be really tough sections. So it's going to be the last 4 days are going to be hard.
Right. Well, certainly you are hitting, you say 1,000 meter plus, aren't you, at some stage?
Yeah. There's a couple of peaks like that where it's 1,100, 1,200 meters. And again, on the Fimmerhalls Trail, I think last year that remained closed for nearly the whole year because of blizzards. So I've got to check in with I've got to log my hiking plans with the Icelandic search and rescue before I start out. And then I've got to check in at the start of the Logavar with the ranger station there to get a weather report and make sure that it's clear to go all the way.
That was going to be my next question, really. What's the rules or suggested advisory things that you should do if you are doing a remote hiking in Iceland? Do you have to get permissions? Is it like a permit system, the same in the States, or is it sort of an advisory, but you speak to the appropriate rangers?
There's no permit system, but you are strongly advised to speak to your rangers. And from what's been explained to me is that once you register with the rangers and you take on board their advice, if they tell you it's okay to go ahead, and then you come a cropper on the hills or you just get caught by a freak blizzard, then the search and rescue will go out and get you, and it doesn't cost you anything. If you ignore their advice and you plow ahead, all the same, then the cost is on you. So it's strongly encouraged. I mean, these guys are there all year round. They're from people that I've spoken to. They're some of the best search and rescue units in the world. They're really good, and they really know their home patch. So it's if they say no, then it's no.
So you're in good hands there from that point of view.
Yeah, and I've in the event that I can't go through the trails, I've got backup routes planned as well, so that I can kind of zip round. It won't be, as far as I'm concerned, it probably won't be as interesting not to do them, but to complete the whole 600 plus Ks, I've planned kind of backup routes to take.
And are you taking something like the spot system or anything like that, or a tracking system that people can follow your routes? The people who are interested in sponsoring you.
I am indeed. I'm going to have a Garmin InReach, and I'll be posting a link on my Twitter feed and on the Walk for the Dogs Facebook page. So that'll be up there, so people will be able to follow my progress. I used one in Greenland before, and they're absolutely fantastic because they allow that two-way text messaging, which is great to keep in contact with home.
Right, that'll give your loved ones a reassurance then as times change. I mean, we never hear anything, obviously, in the UK about missing people or accidents as such in rural Iceland or remote Iceland. Is it a common occurrence, people getting lost?
Not from what I've read. I know there was the last time there was a problem was in June, I think 2 years ago, June 2017, when some hikers, because I've been checking on the trails constantly, kind of a couple of times a week, and they've literally only just opened, even though we're in coming towards the end of June. But 2 years ago, in early June, there was 3 French hikers who were fairly well equipped with winter gear, ignored all advice and ploughed ahead, and I think one of them died by the time they were rescued. So it's not a usual occurrence, but it's the search and rescue crews up there are prepared for this kind of stuff, and again, it just shows you the importance of checking in with them and taking their advice. That if they say, you shouldn't do this, you just shouldn't do it.
As you say, a lot of respect for people on their own patch.
Yeah. I mean, no one knows their own patch better than the local search and rescue units.
You're listening to The Outdoor Station, the home of UK-based audio and video podcasts for lovers of the great outdoors everywhere. Since 2005, over 10 million people have listened, and over 3 million have watched the videos. Sharing the passion, appreciation, and understanding for the outdoors world.
When I did my last interview with Alistair Humphreys, we were talking about the time and weight and bulk of taking things, cameras, video, whatever, is to record your event. And these things add up with charges and this sort of thing. Now you're not going to be calling in anywhere, as far as I can see, and topping up your USB charge. So, and it's a spectacular place, and I see on your equipment list you've got a couple of cameras there, all of which, of course, need power. So, what are you taking to record it with, and how are you keeping them topped up?
I'm going to bring. Some people have said to me, "Oh, you should bring a solar charger," but again, solar is good if you're absolutely 100% certain that there's going to be sunshine, which I'm not. So my plan is to bring a couple of external batteries. I used them in Greenland in the past when I had everything on my back. And then for my Nikon camera, because being a complete bird nerd, and I'm going to be walking my first 5 days or through some of the best bird watching in the world. I'm going to have my Nikon camera. So I'm going to have to pack up with batteries for that. And then it's a question really of being able to charge the InReach, which they're really, really good on power supply. I think they get you've got kind of 100 hours of them being, if you leave it switched on continuously, whereas I plan just to power it down at night and plow on. And I'll have a couple of batteries for the GoPro camera that I'm bringing with me as well.
Well, I see you've got down here a 300mm lens with a teleconverter to go onto your Nikon.
Yeah.
Now, that's a fair amount of front heavy weight. You're pulling a trekking cart behind you. In the distance, you see an eagle or whatever you might see there. That I'm not a bird watcher, so I may have just dropped myself in it. But you see something spectacular that you want to pick. How the heck are you going to hold a camera like that steady to get a glorious picture?
Well, the 300mm lens is actually, because they're the newer grade of Nikon lenses, they're actually quite small and compact. So it's not actually that heavy. It's not like the big monster 500s that you see wildlife photographers using. And this is why I've got the converter on there as well, which is quite small. So it's not as big as what people would think, and the camera body itself is heavier than the lens and the converter together. And when I was in Greenland, I had the whole pack on my back, and I had the camera on a harness, a specialized harness on my chest. So I hiked like that for 8 days when I was up there, whereas this time round, everything will be on the cart, and I will have the camera up on my chest until I hit those final 2 trails. So I've worked out where the weight is going to be. And again, this is the beauty of the cart, is that, if you're going up, depending on the type of terrain, if you can use the cart, you can actually, you can be maxed out to a lot heavier than what conventional hiking will allow.
Well, let's talk a bit about equipment as we sort of drifted into this area, and I'm curious to see what you've taken. I'd be interested in your reasoning. Obviously, from a weather protection point of view, you've taken what I would expect you to take.
Yeah.
You've got multiple layers of, well, it's not multiple layers. You've got sort of 4 or 5 T-shirts and sort of socks and things. Do you find that you get through these things on a fairly swift basis? I mean, you're not going to have a chance to wash them, I suppose, and dry them out.
I suppose from a military background, it's always kind of been a question of change your socks as often as you can. So that's the one question. T-shirts. I've got 4 light T-shirts with me, tech T-shirts with me, and again, it's I'll use them going over the space of nearly 3 weeks. Really, I expect to kind of get through them. I know that by stopping close to some of the rivers or lakes, I'll be able to rinse them out and just strap them, just tie them to the pack, tie them onto the cart, and allow them to kind of dry naturally that way. Again, it's once I get back to Ireland and repack my pack with food and everything else in it, I'm going to have to relook at whether I do chop and change a few bits and pieces. I think for me, probably the most important thing will be to have a couple of base layer and a couple of warm layers there that I can use if it does get really cold.
What's your insulation layer going to be? Because presumably once you stop perspiring as well, and you stop and you set up camp, you're going to want to wrap up and keep as much warmth in as possible. Yeah,
it's the I've got one of the newer RAB Alpha Flux jackets, hooded jackets, which is quite warm. And then with throwing a windproof layer, waterproof layer over the top. Along with a base layer underneath, I'm taking the highest grade, I think, of the icebreaker, the 200 grade merino base layer. So I'm going to use that. So it should be pretty warm with those.
The only thing I think that I can't see on here, and there may be a reason for it, is do you not use hiking poles? Do you not find them an advantage for the stability?
Yes, I do, and that's an omission on my part. I will have hiking poles with me. I actually fell in love with hiking poles when I first started training for Greenland, because I had never used them before. But then when I started using them and started getting used to them, I actually wouldn't be without them nowadays.
It's phenomenal the difference they make to people. It's not just easing the weight. It's certainly everything else. It's balance and all the rest of it, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and quite honestly, there's been one occasion while I was training before going to France last year. I probably would have done my ankle a severe injury if it hadn't been for walking poles. They really did save my ankle from going over badly on it.
Coming on to the sort of camping equipment, you're using a big Agnes, which is a roomy tent. You've
Yes.
got the Glatamoosen 100 litre, which is a tough big pack. Why did you choose Glatamoosen? Out of interest.
Well, I looked at a kind of what my options were for a big pack, because obviously I was going to be carrying that bit more gear than people normally would. And I had a look at the Exped pack, and I know a couple of guys who do quite a lot of trips into the Nordic areas, and they use the Exped big expedition pack, which is they come in an 80 to 100 litre as well. And when I was looking at those, they were quite expensive, and I kind of shopped around and I looked at equivalents, and I just happened to happen on the Glatamoosen, and it was at a discount rate. I think it was a 50% discount on it, and I went, okay, well, that's an option. It's a really good price. And then I read quite a number of reviews, and I spoke to a few people about Glatamoosen, and they said, well, you can't find a better pack. So I went, yeah, okay. So I picked up that one, and I've put it through its paces back in Ireland, and it's bomb-proof. And one of the other attractions to it is it's an eco-friendly. So they recycle all their equipment. They recycle all their bags. So when you're done with your bag, you send it back to them. They'll actually pay for the shipping, and they'll give you a shopping voucher for it as well.
They are a phenomenal company, and in all honesty, it was one of the first outdoor companies I met at the European Trade Fair when we first started 15 years ago. And when you think about it, the eco awareness and what they were doing in the for the outdoor industry and the environment generally 15 years ago still beats a lot of companies now. So what they've developed into, as you say, recycling packs and so on. It's and their equipment is just really built for the job.
I don't think you can get much better than Scandinavian built gear. I think we're a bit behind the curve in a lot of respects to their thinking. I mean, when you look at the Fjallraven and stuff like that, it's they really do build bomb-proof kit. And being ex-military as well, we have a huge affinity to equipment. We tend to collect lots and lots of gear, maybe more than some other hikers.
Yeah, it's always difficult having a conversation with an ex-military person about going lightweight.
We're not really geared up for ultralight. I actually had a conversation with a friend of mine who I served with, and he's heading off to do the Tour of Mont Blanc in July, and trying to convince him that he needed to have an actual lighter pack than the one he had, even if he was only cutting back by a kilo. It was a bit of a struggle.
It doesn't surprise me. Anyway, moving on with the gear. I see you using the Jetboil, the Jetboil Sumo,
Yes.
and you're being supported or sponsored by Firepot. Am I right?
Yes. Firepot have been great in their support. They've supplied me with my food.
So how many packs of food and what sort of calories are they giving you?
I'm taking the extra large packs, so I've got 40 extra large packs, and I think they're 750 or between 650 and 750 calories per pack. They're actually quite big. I mean, when I used them when I went to Greenland and France as well. First of all, when I went to Greenland, I used kind of a mixture of different rations, and I found the best of them kind of hearty meal taste, variety was the Firepot. So I got onto them when I was going, just on the off chance. I got onto them when I was getting ready to go to France, and I said, "Well, you wouldn't be interested in sponsoring a few ration packs?" And they went, "Absolutely, and tell us what you're doing, and we'll keep supplying you." So they've been fantastic like that in their support. So I'm taking the extra large capacity ones, and they're they're quite filling.
So for people listening to this again, what's your daily diet? How do you run yourself on a trip like this with the food that you're taking?
Typically, what I'll be doing is kind of my coffee in the morning, and neck a couple of Cliff Bars, and then just get on the road. And then, unlike what I had done in the past, where I just hiked straight through until the evening time, this time I plan to actually stop, take a break, because of covering distances like 40 kilometres. I'm going to stop and take a break. Cook a meal, rest up for a couple of hours, and then start bashing on again.
So I presume there's going to be a lot of light till late in the evening.
Yes, it's pretty much 24 hours daylight, so that I'm not constrained by darkness, which is great, which is actually great. In France, like I had to cut certain days short because of terrain and stuff like that had delayed me, and arriving into to make camp kind of in the evening time before it got dark. Whereas I found Greenland was fantastic. As long as you had good terrain, you could just keep going. So this is the idea for Iceland as well, is that I can move at a reasonable pace and cover the distance in the day.
Yeah, so start early and sort of finish late and take a good break in the middle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now, the two things that really did catch my eyes, you might expect during looking through your list here, is first of all 1.5 kilos of Irish biltong. No other biltong will do, and a litre of Jameson's. Yes,
that's purely medicinal purposes.
I saw it came under the first aid list.
Yeah, the alcohol is quite expensive in Iceland. Plus, I won't really be anywhere where I can, pull over in the evening time and have a beer. And there's nothing quite like kind of, sitting there in the evening time, have your dinner, and just relaxing you outside your tent and have a wee dram.
You're also being supported, I notice, by Splash Maps, and I've not heard of them before. What are they offering you?
Splash Maps are actually, they're a UK-based company, and what they do is they put maps down on a fabric. It's a special, I actually don't know what type of fabric they use, but it's a fabric that they've come up with, and that's incredibly resistant. And they will actually put your map down on this fabric, so you don't have to worry about having your map get wet in the rain, or you don't have to worry about sticking a paper map into a plastic cover. You can literally just stick this thing in your pocket. So it's great. It's great like that. It's lightweight and it's not cumbersome. And I first got in touch with them originally because with the type of work that I do, we have to think about evacuations. And I thought, well, one of the things that I really kind of need is an evacuation map. So I got in touch with them. I spoke to them on several occasions, and they said, yeah, we can do this. And they actually made me a bespoke escape and evasion map, if you want. And we kind of took it from there. And Dave Overton took quite a lot of interest in what I was doing. So we kind of put our heads together, and they're going to make a bespoke route map for me, which will be a nice souvenir as well.
So is that a one-piece map, or is that a series of overlapping sections?
No, it'll be a one-piece map.
Wow, it's going to be quite a sizable thing then, isn't it?
It won't be too big. I mean, there's a lot of the areas up there where it's, you literally just got to kind of point yourself in one direction and follow your. And I'm very old school when it comes to navigation. I will have a GPS with me, but I've always been kind of map and compass. So. I do tend to rely on my map quite a lot. But up there, I mean, when you come to the likes of going across the Highlands, and it's kind of well signposted as well. So this map won't be huge, but it'll be quite comprehensive as to the route that I'll be following.
Well, it sounds like a fantastic opportunity to see what must be one of the most magnificent countries in the world. And seeing it down the spine, as it were, would be just glorious. So we wish you well.
Very much.
And just to remind people, that's 620 kilometres, or in old money, 387.5 miles.
Yes.
So with a fair... Do you know what the total ascent's going to be?
I don't actually off the top of my head. I do have a profile of the route that I got from Google Earth. Somewhere on my Facebook page, but I mean I've got it's going to be quite undulating, especially at the start, but it's really at the end is when I'm going to start hitting those 1,100-1,200 meter peaks.
But you know what they say, you'll be fit by then.
Exactly. It's all downhill on the other side.
Absolutely. You'll smell the bar from about 50 miles away.
Exactly. I've actually got an American friend who's going to be up there around the time I'm finishing. He's going to be up there on holidays, so he's going to meet me for a few beers.
Oh, fantastic. Well, and I'm sure he'll be paying for them all as well and treating you. Listen, it's been a fantastic story. Obviously, you'd like to keep in touch. Just let us know you're back safe and well. And obviously, if people want more information, all the links are going to be on the show notes. To your Just Giving page or the charity page that you're using, as well as all the details, as well as the tracking information. And of course, because I know you're a regular listener, so you know the question that's coming. Of all the things I could have asked you about this trip, what should I have asked you?
What kind of birds am I going to see?
That was one that immediately came to mind, I have to say. What birds are you going to see? Don't tell me eagles.
I'm actually the highest on my list is a Barrow's goldeneye, which is quite an unusual bird for the area. So that's it's a duck. And as my better half says, it's brown.
Obviously, a fellow expert like me, then.
So yeah, that's going to be the highlight of my trip. And I'm actually taking a rest day in the area where I'm likely to find it.
What a great project, and my thanks to Dermot for taking the time to share it with us. We wish him well, of course, and if you can spare a small donation to support him, I'm sure he and those he's helping will greatly appreciate it. We are planning a follow-up interview, maybe even a video interview, once he returns, and then we can actually see the landscape ourselves he actually crossed. If you know of others who also have an interesting story to share related to self-powered travel, be it walking, cycling, paddling, even horse riding, please drop me a line at info@theoutdoorstation.co.uk. Finally, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter and to be kept up to date with more stories and interviews like this. So until next time, folks, bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To hear or see more from our extensive free library, please visit theoutdoorstation.co.uk.